Hello, everyone. It has been too long. I have been working a lot, and I came across a Oblivion Remastered mod list finally coming back called A Painted World Remastered. So we're going to go and start off with its README. And I wanted to take this opportunity for part 0 of my playthrough to just go through what I would normally do if I need to install a mod list, as well as go through some of these gameplay guides that are in here, and they're linked in the video, but I also have his Discord. So this was a Wabbajack mod list. If you're unfamiliar with those, it essentially installs the entire load order, as well as any patches, configurations, all for you as a auto installer. And it's really nice. It's modular usually, so you can install multiple mod lists and they won't kind of clobber over each other. But I'm going to assume that you know what Wabbajack is. If you don't, this README details it anyway, but it's basically a auto installer. But this was made by Sasquatch. Painted World is Nelly. You guys can read that. So some of the install instructions, your basic Visual, C++, and .NET runtimes. This one, I would recommend you. Oblivion Remastered is pretty finicky for modding at this moment, so they do recommend uninstalling it. Basically, having a nice clean slate is the idea of this. So yeah, you can see here to reinstall it. This one's very important. I found out that my shader cache that I had in my existing game was not great. So basically what they're trying to say here is get your shader cache to be reinstalled. If you search it on Google or whatever search engine you use, you should be able to figure that out. But it's in, I think there's a couple locations. Let me see here. If I do Windows R, yeah. So this location here, user profile, my documents, my games, Oblivion Remastered, saved config Windows. Open up that quick. Oops. Should bring us here. I believe it's this file here is one of them. As well as this web cache. I feel like I'm forgetting something, so just search it yourself. I'm not too sure on that part. But for the most part, all of your questions can get answered in this README. I would follow it step by step. This is all kind of troubleshooting things. This one's how to start up the list. This brings us into a good point, actually. So what I like to do personally, because I'm a Steam fanboy, I have a modded folder category in my Steam. And then I like to use, I think it's called SteamDB. Let me open this up. Steam Grid Database. Yeah. This is a great site for where I get all my custom grids and icons, but that's where I got this little background from. And then if you click on it, we got this kind of this cover art and a play. So that's kind of how I integrate my stuff. If I go to properties here, so what I'm actually targeting is what the README's stating, is to open up the mod organizer. So if I open this up and do browse, it's going to take me to where I'm starting it in. So I'm starting it in the base directory of where Oblivion Remastered is, but my target is actually where I installed the mod list. I hope that makes sense. But I have the games, modded games, Wabajack, Oblivion Remastered, a painted world, and then here's my mod organizer.exe. But I'm going to go back to the README here. So yeah, they go through some of the optional mods now. So this is more so in the mod organizer part. Known issues, updating the list, removing the list. Not anything too important. I think I'm going to bring this now to the other link that I have included, which is my character build. So I actually made this myself. I took some liberties from other Discords. I think there was one from Nolvis that I played a while back. I saw a character template there. So I did, you know, take some credit from other people, but for the most part, I kind of homegrown a decent portion of this. But if you guys are interested in the template and making your own character build, I do have that, and that link should be in the description. But this is what I'm actually planning to play. And the list goes through a decent bit with changes, and I think I'll switch to that, actually. We'll start with... I think we'll start with races. So the big takeaway here is there's a mod that overhauls every race, as well as the rune stones now have an extra effect to your greater power. So for example, I'm going to be playing the Breton. My passive is my spell absorb is 25% and my fortify magic is 50 points. I think by default the vanilla is like 75% magic resistance or something like that. So yeah, the passive's even different. And then my power is dragon skin, which I can't recall if that's vanilla or not, but these certainly are modded, where selecting the runestone now in game will give an additional or replace the effect. So an additional one, an example is this Hastra. I don't know how to pronounce it quite. I'll zoom in a little bit here. But the dragon skin will now give 50% magic resistance, as well as this, shielding for 50 points, whereas the Raymond one is a replacement, so we actually just reflect damage rather than the shield. So they all have varying effects based on your race, but just know that the races have been modified from the base game, which brings us to, I would say, the birth signs. So all of the birth signs also now have a passive and a lesser power. So your race, you get a greater power. Your birth sign, you get a lesser power, but they both give you passives. I hope that makes sense. And then there's the Doomstones, and those are an interesting one. So just because you're a lady for your birth sign doesn't mean you have to choose the lady's Doomstone power. So you can mix and match the Doomstone and your birth sign, which I thought was pretty cool. So for my character, I believe my Doomstone power is under the mage, but my birth sign, yeah, is the ritual. I thought for mine being a full good character, this the reanimate on touch kind of lost me because my character is going to be very much against necromancy. So I didn't quite. I like the conjuration part. It's pretty cool that you grab a bunch of stuff from the Oblivion planes, but yeah, it didn't quite fit my character. So, which I think that can probably bring us to combat's honestly pretty wordy, but just know that there's a lot more mechanics now. I'm not going to really pay a terrible amount of attention to it. I'm just here to play the game. I'll notice things. I think there's like more of a parry mechanic. There's like timed block mechanics. You'll see a couple of the hotkeys get changed, which I do really like the hotkey changes that the mod author added. I think his name is Sasquatch. But I'm going to kind of gloss over this. If you're curious about it, you can read it yourself. The magic one I thought was pretty important. There is some new magic in the game. I have it detailed on what I'm planning to use for my character. But these are all kind of each school of magic got changed. I think it's not Ascension. What's the mod? I don't remember if it gets called out in here. No, it's not Ascension, but there's a mod that is essentially this entire overhaul is taken from it. Maybe once I open up MO2, I can take a closer look at it. I don't plan to do it for this playthrough, but there does seem to be a lot more immersion with the necromancy or siding with the Mythic Dawn, which is pretty cool. So you can do necromancy now, and you gain more favor with souls, which is pretty awesome. So I'm excited to try that out in another playthrough. I thought there was something about Mythic Dawn. I think that's under the quests. So there's been, quest changes. So this essentially is a section for you can join the Mythic Dawn, which is pretty awesome. There's a level requirement now for the Knights of the Nine. No changes for Shivering Isles. Basically some level locking or quest locking for some of the player homes that in a vanilla they just kind of hand you them. I think that's fine. And all of the guilds, I don't know if it's all of them, but definitely the Fighters Guild, obviously, and the Mages Guild. You have to be skilled in one or more schools of magic or schools of combat to basically advance in the guild, which I think makes sense. Okay, yeah, so there's some requirements for the guilds, except for it looks like the Dark Brotherhood, there might not be any sort of requirements. And then this also has what's his name? I think Cold Tyrant's Radiant Quest overhaul, which is pretty awesome for Oblivion. I honestly don't mind Radiant Quest too much. But it gives you a little bit more immersion for your character and kind of breaks away just doing quests the whole time. Or if you need, how should I say this? If you need like a little bit more of a breakaway from the main story quest lines or like the faction quest lines, it kind of breaks away that just like doing the next quest and the next quest. You can kind of do some Radiant quests in between there to maybe bolster some of your character's skills rather than just kind of aimlessly wandering, which, you know, that's some people like that, and you still have the choice to do that if you want. But I personally like kind of having a quest for everything, so I think the Radiant Quest overhaul is pretty awesome. I don't remember there being too much in miscellaneous. Yeah, so fast travel's disabled. Or rather, it's optional. I do plan to disable fast travel. I actually do enjoy the more requesting fast travel system, but you can disable it at any time if you'd like. Oh, this one was pretty cool. So there's now basically a worship mechanic, which that's where my character comes in on being a cleric of Arkay. We're going to be worshiping Arkay, obviously, which is very much against necromancy. So our playthrough, we're going to, I would say we're going to be pretty aligned with being a good guy overall. You know, we may have to kill some bandits that come up on us, but generally we're going to try to kill undead or Daedra. Try to follow a good guy path. There is a survival mechanic. I don't plan to do any of it, but it is there if you're interested. You can safely turn it off in-game. There is a spell that you will use, and that will actually just disable the whole scripts for all of the survival mechanics, but there's a whole bunch of mechanics. I think it's called like core survival. Got some vampire immersion. I guess you can gamble. I don't plan to be gambling. I think that's more of a thief type thing if you wanted to play like a rogue or maybe a bard or something along those lines. Someone that likes money, I suppose, or high stakes. But that's there if you need it. I think that's really all of the gameplay. The only other thing I might mention is that each update, he has a change log for it. So we are playing on 1.0.10. I'd say for the most part, it sounds like the game is pretty feature complete. I think based on, let me see if I can pull up their Discord quick. It's based on one of their updates. Here we go. Yeah, development will likely slow down at this point. So there isn't much more that you can add or do. So, I mean, it sounds like the mod author is pretty happy with where things are at. And I think it's pretty safe to get a full playthrough going in on this. So we're going to give it a try. It won't be in this part. I think the last thing I'm going to go through is actually starting up the game and just showing some performance, because this game is not very well optimized. even without mods, the game runs pretty poorly. But I do have some maybe tips and tricks, that sort of thing, to hopefully help people out if they're struggling on performance with similar specs to me. Which I have a link for that of all of the tweaks that I use. So the main one, I didn't follow everything in it, but this does give a nice overarching tips and tricks. So I would maybe start here. As soon as it gets to the like register editing, I kind of skipped that. I didn't really think that there'd really be that much of a performance gain. But certainly the NVIDIA control panel settings, I took those ones. Some of the lighter stuff, I just kind of go through and make sure that I have it. But this is a good link, which I have this in here. I have some of my in-game settings, but I'll probably just show what those are on the stream if people are curious on what settings I like to use. And then this has all of the additional mods that I decided to add on top of the list. These are all, just know that they're Rule 11, so if you do end up adding them, you do void official support for the mod list. There is a modified channel for people that they can, if they want to talk about possibly getting support, but they've modified the game. There is a channel, but just know that you void essentially official support if you start adding your own mods, or possibly remove mods that aren't in the optional tab. But this is my list, and I have that linked as well. So I think that's everything I wanted to go through. Let me know if there's something else that you're curious about, and when we go through the playthrough, I can try to answer it or direct you to someone that can answer it. Generally, I'd say the Discord it's relatively active. When I was asking questions, I got answers, decently quick. But, don't expect, we all got lives, and people are busy. So, sometimes try it yourself, but support is there if you need it. So I think I'm going to close out a lot of these tabs, and then we'll go back to our Steam. So I'll show you what it looks like when I start up the game. So I just right click on this and hit play, which this will bring up the mod organizer too. In my list, I did add a plugin called an indexer. So when you do update the mod list, what this indexer does is it'll actually ignore the files that you've added. It still messes with the overall load order, but it makes it a little bit easier to update your mod list if you have added things or removed things, mostly with adding. I don't know if I usually don't try to remove things from mod lists, as that can really kind of mess with compatibility and like just overall stable parts, but adding mods, it's a hit or miss. For the most part, I don't think I've added anything too crazy. The only one that I get a little iffy on is I did add a necromancy radiant quest, just to allow my character to seek out necromancers in the playthrough. But these other ones, I probably should go through what I changed. So by default, there's a painted world reshade for the remastered. I did disable that just for performance. I actually prefer for HDR specifically, Lumen Remastered with shadows reworked. I think it really, it gets that vibrant feel that the original Oblivion had, because I think the Unreal Engine, everything looks so brown, and I like a more blue, vibrant, almost fantasy look for Oblivion, just because that's the original artwork, or the original art style of the game. Audio just overhauls the magic sounds, and then this just allows me to hide my helmet. So after going through this, really the only thing left is to hit play. Okay, wait, I forgot one thing though. Optional mods, you should always take a look at that first. I did disable simple fast start, but I would recommend enabling that when you're just starting out on the mod list, just to make sure everything's working correctly. You can check this, and then when you start the game, it essentially skips that first dungeon that you go through. I will not be enabling Ultra Plus because the weather and lighting mods that I have are essentially the same as Ultra Plus. So I found personally this caused a performance dip for me, and that might vary between people, but just personally, I did notice a little bit more of a performance dip for having Ultra Plus. So I still prefer this. When I was modding this game a little bit earlier, this is what I was using too, and I really enjoyed it. Maybe last thing before we hit run, I will try to timestamp this so that if you're just maybe curious about a certain aspect, you can just jump to that. I hope that's helpful. All right, we're going to hit run here. Don't be afraid of these command prompt windows. I thought one of them was OBSE. I could be wrong on this. There's like Magic Loader, there's OBSE, and then there's the Elder Scrolls sync map. But I think it's like basically a hook for getting all the mods in. And I will say there's times where I've had it crash dump. If it's doing that, try having your shader cache rebuild, and that usually helped me out. And again, just try to search that on your own on how to delete your shader cache and have it reconstruct it. But here we go. Gonna lower this volume a little bit. It's a little loud. At least for my headphones. Let me know on the volume how this sounds. I'll probably take a look at the video before the playthrough. But this is also kind of just a playtest stream for me before actually before we actually start things for real. And then I use MSI Afterburner. So you should see on the top left now what FPS we're looking at. But I got a couple testers. I have my last character in here. I think it was this guy that I wanted to showcase just what this list can look like with my settings. And this will kind of give you an idea of what my character is going to look like as well. So you can hit G to basically stop the character, or remove their helmet. Gonna let the frame gen, there we go. Frame gen's kicking in now. It sometimes takes a little bit for it to really kick in, but... But yeah, this is what the list looks like. So a lot more vibrant. You can see, I'll try not to do this too much during stream, but since we're kind of testing things out, I will move things around a bit. So if you do Alt Insert for the Lumen Remastered mod, it will actually disable the color correction. So this is kind of the Unreal Engine look of the game. And then here's the color correction for Lumen Remastered. So I think it just kind of brings a little bit more vibrancy and a little bit more of that blue that we're used to for the original game. You can adjust the lumen overall, basically the gamma. So, for example, if you don't really like that kind of washed out look for HDR, you can try to tone it down a little bit. I found right about here looks just about perfect. And I really liked the blue in the sky there. But yeah, you can see performance. You know, we're in town right now. We're getting about 80 FPS. We had a little bit of a hitch at the beginning there, but it's kind of to be expected. This game is just, man, its optimization is great. Oh yeah, this is a mod, I believe. An assassin shortly comes after us. We're gonna just go ahead and do a kill command on him. Sorry, buddy. I'm testing stuff. But I'll show you what the open world might look like with similar specs, and if you get all the settings kind of the same as mine, what that might look like. Something else that's odd that I found was with the frame generation in particular. Without frame gen, I feel like my graphics card isn't even at 100%, which I'm like, okay, that's kind of odd. So it's almost like there's a built-in buffer already for frame gen, or like they just expect you to have frame gen enabled, which I don't know if I agree with overall, but here we are. So, kind of some dips, a little bit choppy at first, but once you kind of get moving, I think it, the stutters at least get a little bit minimized. There's no way you're going to eliminate stuttering completely, but I found these settings to be kind of the best bang for your buck. Haha, there's some deer right there. I don't think any of them are bucks, though. They look like does. But this tended to work best for me, and you see outdoors, you know, now I'm getting about 120 FPS, you know, all the way up to... so, you know, it improves very quickly. In the game, you know, even if I'm looking over here, we're getting about 100 FPS. See the Imperial City over there, still at about 100 FPS. But yeah, the stutter is definitely still prevalent. I don't think there's really a way around it. The devs seem to not be able to figure out a way to actually fix that, but I'm at a point where I'm like, I can kind of deal with it. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it can be a turnoff for some people. I would, and I don't really, I don't really blame them. This is pretty cool. I didn't know that the way shrines are actually markers. I don't think that's the default behavior, so that's pretty cool. You can actually get way shrines. But yeah, let me know if you want me to go over anything else on my settings. I'll probably run through my in-game settings here, but I do also have it included as a link. Yeah, this is kind of a new format. I also got, I I updated my webcam to hide my background just so that I can give a little bit more of an expression to the overall video. I feel like when I was looking back on some of my footage, it was really hard to kind of see my face. And I've seen this format in a couple other people's videos, and I actually do like it. I think it's pretty minimalist overall on how much real estate you have to take up on the screen to put yourself into it. And there'll be some streams where I probably won't have my webcam on. I'll just want to just capture my gameplay. But for the most part, this character is going to be just for the playthrough. So, Shade and all. What a pretty place. Alright, so we're going to go through. We're going to play on Adept difficulty. I think later on we may go up to Journeyman, depending on how our build goes, but I think we're going to start with just Adept. That seems to be recommended. I don't think audio's too important, mostly up to taste, but here's my audio settings that I decided on. This is kind of the meat and potatoes of what's important here. So we got borderless, we have uncapped frames. I put my brightness down to -2 personally for HDR. FOV's set to 90 for both. No motion blur, no screen space reflections. And then our quality level is just straight medium. Just medium everything. We have no hardware ray tracing. We have software on low. We're using FSR for upscaling technique. We do have frame generation turned on for FSR 3, and we have that set to performance. I like a little bit of sharpness. And then to try to mitigate as much latency as possible, we have NVIDIA Reflex set to enabled and boost. And that nets us, you know, I mean, you're seeing about an 8 millisecond delay, which I'm pretty impressed with on frame generation. I'm used to seeing that like 15 to 20 milliseconds, and you might feel a little bit more delay, but no, this honestly feels really good. And still getting 105 FPS is just wonderful. So your mileage may vary, but let me know maybe what you guys are getting. Whoops, sorry. Accidentally hit tab, fat fingered. But let me know what you're getting, and I can try to maybe help out with that. But this, I mean, overall, this feels pretty good for me. Oh my gosh, there's goblins. Had to kill those goblins. Gotta get them out of there. So yeah. Just gonna walk around a little bit more, kind of show you what kind of frame rates to expect. Everything interior, you know, take this and assume it's gonna be a little bit better. You're kind of seeing a little bit on there, that ghosting. I've learned to ignore it for the smoothness of the FPS I get. It's, yeah, on first person it can be pretty rough, which is unfortunate, but it's the cost of frame generation, unfortunately. Let me know how much that bothers you, and I could try to look for a better solution, but for now I'm I'm pretty comfortable with it. I think most of the combat I'm gonna do for this playthrough is gonna be in dungeons, and I've noticed that the ghosting is a lot more reduced in dungeons because you got more to play around with. There's not as much frame generation going on in the dungeon, so. Suppose before I quit out, let me see if I can find an interior. I don't remember if I can just go into here or not. They're probably fine, right? They'll be fine. You can see what an interior looks like. I'll go first person here. Say this looks almost a little dark, so I may tweak this a little bit more, but this is kind of what my game looks like right now, with shadows reworked and lumen remastered.
You're not supposed to be in here.
That looks cool.
What are you doing in here? This is the headquarters for the Knights of the... If you stay here and Lord Farwell finds out when he gets back from his latest... This is your last...
So yeah, next part, whenever I get around to it, we'll be just going full into the playthrough. I'll maybe mention tidbits about the mod list, but for the most part, this is really just I wanted to go through the mod list and, you know, have a fun character playthrough. I do like to roleplay a little bit with my character, so I'm not going to go like crazy with a new voice or anything like that, but just expect me to probably talk about the prompts in some way.
Great. Good to hear.
Oh, I love...
Yes? What can I do for you?
This is how you fast travel, by the way. Unfortunately, there's no real voice lines for it, but you have a selector. You can go to the Imperial City, for example. So you're able to hop around all the major settlements, and you can see there's a little bit of a buffer for load times, but really, it's not too bad. Things get loaded relatively quickly, and I think the list still looks... Overall, I think it looks very good. So I think on that note, I will, the next part is going to be the first part of the actual playthrough. So I hope everyone has a good rest of their day and maybe found something useful. Feedback is always welcome if you need clarification on something or maybe advice for future videos. I'm pretty new to trying out tutorial style videos. Admittedly, this one's pretty impromptu. I don't necessarily have a script or anything that I'm following. I'm just going through things with what I've found to be useful. So, alrighty. On that note, I will end the stream, and next one, be on the lookout for the first part of Arathorn of Systres.